Hey guys, Crash Hardy back here with another pro wrestler interview. Today, the wrestler I'm interviewing is none other than Big Vito, who is a former WCW Hardcore Champion as well as a former WCW Tag Team Champion. Vito, how are you?
Crash, what is going on? How's everybody out there in TV, radio land, internet, and everything we got going on in modern technology? Crash, go ahead. I know you've been waiting to do this interview. I've been excited. I've been, preparing. I know you got your notes in front of you. You forgot to mention that I was, you know, um, a developmental hardcore champion of Deep South. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Oh, my bad.
All right. All right. Now that we got all that formality out of the way, go ahead, Crash. Let all the people know about what you got going on. Give me some questions. Let's have a good time. Let's rock and roll with this interview.
All right, well, my first question for you, Vito, is that your early career was as a developmental, or not a developmental, an enhancement talent, pretty much for the WWF. Is that right?
That is true. My rookie year, I made it to the WWF. I worked the first 3 or 4 years of my career on a steady basis, working for the WWF, wrestling some of the greatest guys in our industry, like Bret Hart, Davey Boy Smith, the Big Boss Man, The Undertaker, just to name a few. It was an exciting opportunity for me and a good learning base. So a lot of guys today don't think that if you do TVs you can learn. But I work with the veterans, and when the vets take you under their wing and they teach you, that's what it's all about. I think today it's a little misused of what TV talent is. But if you get to work against the veterans, they usually could teach you and you could learn, and that's a good learning tool for today.
I see. Well, you wrestled early on in your career as Skull Von Crush. Now, tell me a little bit about Skull Von Crush.
Well, I kind of had that look of Baron von Raschke and Skull Murphy. And back then, having a gimmick was just that, being a gimmick and being a gimmick wrestler. So I wrestled for the first 8 years of my career as Skull Von Crush. And I had developed a very good cult following. Took me through, the WWF, to Puerto Rico, to Japan, to Santo Domingo, to Memphis, to ECW, and then that's when my name changed. But I mean, the ride for Skull Von Crush, which is still a legendary name, and people still recognize me as Skull. So I mean, you got to start somewhere, and for that character to have that much TV time and get that much recognition was a great thing.
Well, while you were Skull Von Crush, you had a little tenure in Japan, and you have the distinguished honor of having a pinfall victory over Japanese wrestling legend Mitsuharu Misawa. What was it like working with Misawa?
Well, I didn't know him. He didn't know me. It was a guy in green trunks laughing at me. And I got mad and I said, okay, I'm going to dust this son of a bitch. And that's exactly what I did. And you watch the clip. And it was that quick. And everybody in the building was in shock. And then I went in the back and they said, hey, man, you had a great first night. You go ahead and, pin our Triple Crown winner who hasn't been pinned in 5 years. But I didn't know who he was. And I really didn't care. I was trying to make my name as Skull Von Crush.
I see. Well, during your time as an enhancement talent in the early 90s, who would you say was your favorite person to put over?
Bret Hart. He took the time to teach me. As far as WWF, but then, you have guys like the Honky Tonk Man. I wrestled Demolition Axe Billy, Jimmy Snuka. There is a handful of guys who took the time to teach me and show me the trade, and I can't extend enough gratitude and thank you to all the veterans who took the time to teach me back then, like S.T. Jones, Iron Mike Sharp, the Cheetah Kid, Ted Petty, um, Ivan Koloff. There's so many guys who I can name that took the time, but I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful for those guys because that's how the business should be. Teaching the young guys and and giving them on the job training because that's, I think, what we miss in the business today.
All right. Well, it sounds like you got to work with some of the best the business has to offer.
Yes, sir.
Well, later on, you would make your debut in Extreme Championship Wrestling and you would join a stable called the Baldies. And is it true that this was based off of a real gang?
Well, here's what happened with Skull Von Crush and ECW. Um, I was having great matches with Sabu, Taz, RVD, and the rest of the roster, but they didn't have a single spot for me. And that's when they changed the name, to Vito the Skull Lagrasso. And I went to Paul Heyman. They said, Vito, we really don't have a single spot. And then they came up with, the Baldy thing because I'm bald. There was a bunch of bald guys like Pierre News, Angel, and Tony DeVito. So called us the Baldies. And we wound up doing some great things while I was there in ECW. And I believe if that group would have stayed together before I left for WCW, we could have did greater things than what that team wound up doing.
I see. Well, speaking of you joining WCW, you would make the jump to WCW in 1999. Who was it that brought you into the company?
Vince Russo had called me and said he had a gimmick for me. I spoke to J.J. Dillon. We worked out a contract when I was on the road with ECW. And I came in as Big Vito, and he put me with Johnny the Bull, who was in the power plant. And they said, come up with the name, and they gave me what the characters were supposed to be. I said, let's call us the Mamalukes. And, me growing up in Italian heritage and really living that kind of gangster life, it came natural. So me and Johnny and I became WCW Tag Team Champions. I wound up going on to being a hardcore champion and fighting the legendary Terry Funk on Nitro. I wrestled some great people in WCW like Kevin Nash, Goldberg, Buff Bagwell, Fit Finley, and a whole host of other guys who were instrumental in bringing me along. And it was a great time in my career because I was on top of the world and I was, making a name for myself in the business.
I see. Well, you had a pretty good run in WCW, and if I'm not mistaken, you made it there from 1999 all the way up until the end. Why is it that you don't think, or do you think it is, that you weren't brought into the WWF towards the invasion angle?
They didn't bring a lot of guys who were on the contract, and they only took, I think, a handful of guys, and it was just a numbers game. I mean, there were plenty of wrestlers who didn't go in at that time, and it wasn't. It was just a business decision on their part on who they wanted to take, and then they wound up restructuring all those guys' contracts to 75,000, guaranteed base, and I was making way more than that, and so were a lot of wrestlers. So I wound up getting paid off on my contract, but you can't, that's the sorry side of the business. And if they would have asked me if I wanted to go, of course I would have said yes to have the tag team with Johnny the Bull. But it is what it is, and it was what it was, and it can't change history. But I think I did pretty good for not going in.
Well, back to your WCW run. If you had to pick any match from your WCW run that is the definitive Big Vito match, what would you pick?
Big Vito versus Terry Funk for the hardcore title on Nitro. That was a defining moment in my career. I always thank Mr. Funk for always doing me the favor and making me who I was. It was like passing the torch moment. That night in the bar, everybody was there from Hogan to Flair to Luger to Kevin Nash. Mean Gene came in and said, Vito, let's raise your glass. I want to congratulate Vito, on a great night. This is your coming out moment. Congratulations. And biggest night of my career in WCW. And not to mention wrestling Kevin Nash in the main event on Nitro where I got to wrestle Kevin Nash one-on-one, and then, wrestling Goldberg, and a whole host of other guys. But I mean, if I had to pick one match to define me, it would be the Terry Funk match.
I think that's a great choice. So before you went back to the WWE in 2005, you made a short stop in TNA. Why was that run so short?
I wrestled there, and there was a change in the office, change in booking plans, and before that, I had wrestled in the XWF in the Hulk Hogan group that started, and I was one of the 15 original people to be picked for that. And with TNA, it was just a booking thing, and then WWE called me right after that, and they said, "You still with them?" I said, "No," and they brought me in to wrestle with Nunzio. And that's when I started wrestling, and I got signed to a contract with WWE.
Well, speaking of Nunzio, when they brought you back, they immediately paired you with him, and they kind of gave you this gimmick where you were calling yourself the Godfather. Why was that gimmick so quickly dropped?
I guess because it was just WWE, thing. When you come in on and you break in WWF or WWE, I'm sorry, and you come in winning a championship with somebody, that's a big rub, and that's a big introduction to the business as being a WWE superstar, like I did with Nunzio. So labeling me as a Godfather, but for all the great things Nunzio and I did as a tag team and as partners, I think we were a little underutilized. We should have been tag team champions. We wound up becoming fan favorites, and we did a lot of good work together.
I see. And all right, let's get to the big question. Whose idea was it for you to wrestle in a dress, and what was your reaction to it?
It was Vince and Stephanie McMahon's idea. They called me aside. They said, "Would you want to do this?" I said, "Of course." And in the business, when the boss asks you to do something, of course you do it. If Vince McMahon can crack himself in the head with a garbage can and do hardcore matches, I mean, I could certainly wear a dress. It's just like Dusty Rhodes being put as a common man in polka dots, and if you're a worker in the business, you can make anything work. I made it work. I went undefeated. The gimmick was over. I got to pose in Playground magazine. I got very good notoriety for it. Notoriety that is still alive today. And if that gimmick was going on today, that would be probably the most popular gimmick in wrestling.
I see. And speaking of your winning streak, you had a 4-month-long winning streak. Were they planning maybe a mid-card title run for you? Maybe a run with the United States Championship?
Well, the thing was, I was supposed to fight Booker T for the world title. And something happened where they switched me at the last minute. And I don't think they thought the gimmick would get off the ground like it did. And I took it to great heights. Should there have been a title run? Yes. Should there have been other things done? Of course. But, when the powers to be make a decision, it's just that, and you just have to live with it. And you can't fight the machine, you know what I mean?
I see. And after this run, you would be sent to Deep South Wrestling, where you would develop a kickboxer gimmick. Now, are you a legit kickboxer?
I was doing Muay Thai at the time with Dave Bautista, and I had been taking lessons and doing some great stuff with that, and I incorporated it in this mixed martial arts gimmick because that was the big thing coming up. And I had become ready to do this on TV, and when I was down in Deep South, I wound up becoming a heavyweight champion down there in the dress and then transforming into the Muay Thai gimmick. And when I got scouted by Mike Bucci and Steve Kern, they told me I was ready for TV, and I thought I was going up to TV the next week. And then all of a sudden I was told that I was being let go. so much for the people, the powers to be in the wrestling business. You know.
So, were you surprised by your release, to say the least?
I think everybody in wrestling was surprised because I did that gimmick and I put myself out there that I would have a job for life. And then when I got released, I think it was a shock to everybody in wrestling.
All right. Well, next up, Vito, I'd like to do a little bit of name association, if that's all right with you.
Of course, go ahead, Crash. You're doing a great job. Love this interview. Everybody follow Crash. Follow this interview. I hope you're taking this to heart because this is in depth with Big Vito LaGrasso. Go ahead, Crash.
All right. We'll start with Nunzio.
My brother, my friend, my partner. I know him a long time. I love him to death. He came to my wedding. He's one of my best friends in the world. I can't say enough about him.
All right. Johnny the Bull Stamboli.
Same thing. Me and Johnny, tighter than tighter. Won a major title with him. We became boys. We're still friends today, like I am with Nunzio. I love him like a brother. I miss him tremendously. And I wish we all could have did the FBI together.
I think that would have been a fantastic run.
It would have.
William Regal.
Great wrestler, great competitor, smart mind in the business. Help, get the gimmick over. That feud with Regal is still legendary today. And I can't say enough thank yous to him for working with me during that time.
All right, the late great New Jack.
As crazy as everybody would seem like they were afraid of him and New Jack and I always had a good friendship and we were mutual friends. And, it's just funny, who are your friends in the business? And I'd probably be the only guy to ever call him Jerome in the wrestling business.
All right, Batista.
Early in my WWE career, Batista and I were best buddies. I was kind of like family, knowing his mom, knowing the family, knowing everything. Going to his house, staying there at times, it was a great time in my life, and he's a tremendously nice human being. So.
All right, Vince Russo.
Vince Russo. That guy's been my buddy since 1991, and we're still friends today. He's probably my longest reigning friend, in life, along with a couple other people. But people misjudge him, don't understand him. He don't even call me back. I mean, what am I going to do? But, what can I say about him? But he's a nice man. He's a family man. And when he made decisions about his own personal life, about he needed to be, family first, I mean, he did it. And then when it came to the wrestling business, he took it to heart. He never took it as a job. He always took it home with him. And I think people misunderstood him tremendously.
All right. Reno.
That's my brother. We're still not talking. We're still mad at each
other. Psychosis.
That's a guy who probably stuck behind Rey Mysterio, Juventud Guerrero, and there was Psychosis. In his own right, he could do some great things early in his career, especially in WCW with the cruiserweights. I mean, I got nothing bad to say about him. I mean, he's just one of those guys who got a chance to be in the WWE, did what he could, and moved on.
Bam Bam Bigelow.
Bam Bam Bigelow. I wrestled him in Germany. Wrestled him in WCW. Great competitor, guy who knew the business inside and out. Great to work with. Can't say enough good things about him. I think there's a guy who should be in the Hall of Fame as one of the big men who helped revolutionize the business.
Can't agree more. The late Terry Funk.
I think take all the accolades that are on my social media and like all the things that I can say in interviews, and especially on this interview with you, Crash, is you look back at that footage and you look back at that night, and people don't realize the importance of what it is to pass the torch to somebody and give somebody the rub and show the world, like, hey, this mofo has arrived. Respect him because I do.
I think I see what you're saying. Norman Smiley.
Norman Smiley, one of the happiest guys in wrestling. A good-hearted man. From what I understand, he became a great trainer in WWE Developmental. I don't know if he's still there. But, nice man, always just wanted to live a quiet life and do his thing. And, he made the big win. Probably had one of the greatest entrances in any pay-per-view that you've ever seen in Las Vegas. So, I mean, you can't compare sometimes some things you do and some things you don't. But he probably lived some great moments just like I did.
The late Sean O'Hare.
Talented kid, a tough guy. We used to play basketball at the power plant. There's a guy who would have just been left alone instead of messed with in the wrestling business. I think that's where we got caught up. But I think if things were different, he could have did some greater things. So, I mean, nothing you could say bad about him, except that life was short for him.
Yeah, it's a shame that he's no longer with us. Sean Stasiak.
There's a guy who actually, second-generation wrestler, lived, the life of, Stand-in Man, Stasiak's son. He lost his mother and father at a young age, and somebody who wanted to represent his family name in the worst way. But sometimes when your father's not around, he doesn't have that guiding light for you in the wrestling business like a lot of other gentlemen did. You say like Dusty Rhodes, and you say like Ric Flair, you say like Bob Orton, Mike Rotundo. You get lost a little bit, and it's nothing to take away from him because he has a successful career outside the wrestling business, so you can't say enough good things about him.
All right, another one who sadly passed away, Mike Awesome.
Potential for great things, and you just probably one of the biggest, the big man who could fly when big men didn't fly during that era. And now everybody flies, but if he was to be here doing that now, people would be in awesome awe of what he could do.
I believe that. Angel.
Angel was with me down at Johnny Rogers' school, and we've been friends. And Angel, worked hard at his craft, and I helped Angel get into the ECW. Angel and I worked on the indies before, during, and after all the stints, and I was there the night Angel won his first heavyweight title, doing a hardcore ECW reunion in Canada. And, we had some good things planned, but you know how the wrestling business is. Hey, things happen. We'll catch you later.
Yeah. Super crazy.
A good wrestler, good, lucha. Somebody who's made his name in the business, not only here in the States but in Mexico, and somebody who definitely shined in his time to shine in WWE.
All right, the Boogeyman.
The Boogeyman. There's a guy who I helped make in the wrestling business and doing the worm thing with him at Christmas with Nunzio, and he could tell you You know, it's probably the biggest night of his life because that's like when he got accepted by the world. So I mean, a good human being.
And speaking of having a mouthful of worms, I bet that wasn't fun.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do in the wrestling business. You know that.
Yeah. MVP.
There's a guy who came from hard times and made the most of his opportunities, and he had a great career. I believe he's still wrestling in the WWE or still being a manager. So I mean, you can't knock his work ethic and the good that he has done, for himself as a human being and for the wrestling business.
All right. Bob Holly.
Bob Holly, a tough competitor, a tough guy back in the day, guy who trained, loved the wrestling business, was the wrestling business, followed the old code of locker room etiquette, and it made for a good workout partner because he said, "Man, you never get tired. Man, I do all this and you never blow up." And we used to go in the ring and we used to wrestle and practice and go at it, and people were like, "Man, this is going to be good." And he says, "Vito, you never blow up. You never get tired, man." And I said, "Well, I can't explain it. I just, that's just not for him. But, for the way I trained and the way I went at people, I never wanted to get beat, and I would never get tired. I always had that will to be the best."
That's a good work ethic to have when you're in the wrestling business. So,
you wish you practiced today, my friend.
All right. Ernest the Cat Miller.
Funny individual. Just finished speaking to him. Here's a guy who had charisma. Was friends with Eric Bischoff. Got a job. And he got in the easy way. But as you know, if you get in the easy way, you got to earn your credits. And he earned his way in the wrestling business with WCW.
He was actually my first interview, so that's good to hear.
Nice man. Nice guy. Totally.
The Undertaker.
World of experience. I wrestled him in 1992. In Nassau Coliseum. Guy who's had a tremendous career, tremendous respect for the business. Was old school you can be, and when his time came to leave the business, those business practices of locker room etiquette probably went out the window, but not because of him, but just because of change of times.
I see. JBL.
The greatest announcer of the dress gimmick.
Ah, yes. He really helped get that over.
And if there was an angle to be had, it would have been me against him.
I think that would have been a good hard-hitting match right there.
Yep, it would have.
Lastly, we have The Miz.
The Miz, when he first broke into business, I used to travel with him, and a lot of people used to razz him and, get on him. I always used to tell him riding in the car together, I said, "Man," this will pass. I said, "They're just giving you the business. Just hang in there. Do what you got to do." He's had a tremendous career, did some great things, has a nice family. He's still on top. And when they need somebody to do a special spot or do his pay-per-view run, he's the guy to call on. True professional in the wrestling game.
All right, well, that's all I've got for today. I want to thank you, Vito, for doing this interview with me. I had a lot of fun doing this. And do you have anything you'd like to promote?
Well, my wife is here. Miss Noel, can you do the accolades for our stuff? Crash, this is my wife, Noel. And to all those listening out there, Miss Noel is going to give the credits. Here you go.
Oh, my goodness, what introduction from you. I wasn't expecting you to give me the phone. You can follow Vito on TikTok at The Big Vito Brand, Instagram at The Big Vito Brand, Facebook at The Big Vito Brand, and his dog Dolly is also sponsored by Bully Make Boxes. Go check out Bully Make. They sell dog toys that your dog can't chew through. There you go.
All right, Crash, you got it all right there.
All right, well, Oh, one last thing. You also have a podcast of your own, do you not?
I was doing a little podcast and we're getting everything back off the ground, and we'll be advertising and doing stuff. Just follow the Big Vito brand, guys. We appreciate you subscribing, appreciate you following, appreciate you doing everything, and most of all, give Mr. Crash a follow because he did a great job interviewing me today, and this is probably one of the most enjoyable interviews I've had in a very long time. Thank you very much for having me, Mr. Crash.
All right, well, thank you, Vito. I'll let you go.
All right, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, guys, that was my interview with Big Vito. If you enjoyed that, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button if you enjoyed it as well. If you subscribe, you'll be able to see my videos whenever I upload them. And if you hit the notification bell, you'll get a notification every time I upload. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview with Big Vito. Bye-bye.